that guy was a church guy. And where did he end up? But he had faith. He talked about his faith. He talked about the faith that he had in God. And he thought he was going to have a great day that day. And God said, away from me, you evildoer. I never knew you. So then, what do we have to assume there? That our faith, without movement, and that's exactly what we're talking about, it's iffy whether or not it can save him. Because if a man is actually saved, it's going to talk about here in a minute, you will see it by what he does. His movement will tell you what or where he actually stands and what or where he actually believes. Now, how many people know people who talk a good talk? They look real good. They dress the part. They act like it. They know what they're doing. They know how to talk. And yet you see no fruit in their life at all. And they want to tell you how to live. They want to tell you, and what you want to do is you want to go blah, 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 blah. Because you don't see any movement in their life. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Look at verse 15. If a brother or a sister, here's what we're talking about. Movement, effort, occupation. If a brother or a sister be naked and destitute of daily food, there's a need. Okay, there's a need in front of you. And one of you say to them, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, notwithstanding you give them none of those things which are needful. What does it, or what does your faith profit? Because they came to you with a need, you didn't fulfill the need, so all your words are is blah, 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 blah. Because there's nothing backing that up. Look at verse 17. Even so, faith, that's what we're talking about, your faith, or my faith, if it has not works, if it is not alive, if it doesn't move, if it doesn't have action, if there's no occupation, if there's nothing to back up. Now, see, I tell people, they'll say, well, a subject will come up. And I'll say, listen, if it looks like a duck, and it walks like a duck, and it talks like a duck, it's a duck. It's absolutely, positively a duck. And they'll say, well, they said, and I'll say, do you see anything in their life that would support that? Because Jesus said, you'll know them by their what? Fruit. So if there's no fruit in their life, it's just blah, 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 blah. Because there's no occupation, there's no movement, there's no action, there's no effort going on there to support what they say, and anybody can talk a good talk. Can you? Sure you can. So even so, faith, if it has not works, if it's not alive, is dead. That's what happened to the guy who stood before the throne. Didn't I prophesy in your name? Didn't I cast out devils in your name? But there was no works. So God's going to look at your life, and he's going to say, what did you do? It says so in the word. God, you're going to make account for everything you did in the body while you were on the earth. So if there are no works, if there's no movement, if there's nothing's alive and nothing's happening, then it's just blah, blah, blah. Okay, coming in for a landing because we started late. Let's go to 2 Kings chapter 7 and verse 4. 2 Kings chapter 7 and verse 4. Just going to talk for a second. I'm going to show you what movement will do. Let's start in chapter 7. Let's go to verse 3. It says, and there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate. Now that is the gate of Samaria. It's a city. And they said one to another, why do we sit here until we die? Now why would they die? Because there was a famine in the city. Okay, why is there a famine in the city? Well, verse 24 says, and it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, the son of Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his hosts and went up and besieged Samaria. So you have a king who's coming against a city. And so we're blocking all the gates. There's nothing going in. There's nothing coming out. Things are looking more bleak by the day. Things are not looking good. Have you ever experienced that in your life? You've been sitting in one place. It feels like you're growing roots. There's nothing going on. Things are not looking good. As if we sit here, things are not going good. But this is my comfort zone. And if I leave my comfort zone, it's not going to be good here. And if I stay here, it's not going to be good there. What do? I read an account. We read a book. I read a book. It was called Triggers. And in that book, the author was talking about Ford Company and how a new CEO had come in and taken over power, and Ford was not doing well at that point. And so he walked in and he had a meeting, and he said, hey, we're going to have a meeting every morning of the CEOs in this company because we're losing money and we need to be making money. And so there's a new sheriff in town, and I'm it, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk in room 1 every morning. We're going to sit down around the conference table, and every single person in this room is going to say, hi, my name's Tom Treadway, and I'm a great leader. And they said, what? Some of them said, we can't say that. He said, we're saying it. Everybody, every morning, is going to walk into that conference room, sit down, and they're going to shake the guy next to him's hand. They're going to say, hi, my name's Tom Treadway, and I'm a great leader. Do you know some CEOs at Ford left the company because they would not say, I'm a great leader? Now, many people say they want to change, but few people really mean it. Because change means you have to move, and we have to get out of our comfort zone, and we have to do things that are not popular to us. Okay, look what's happening. We've got a king that's besieging a city that's causing famine in the city. People are beginning to starve. Verse 3 says, and there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate. Now, they were outside the gate because they had leprosy, and they couldn't stay inside the gate. They sent them outside the gate. They had to stay outside the city. And they said to one another, why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, if they go back into the comfort zone, look what's going to happen. The famine is in the city, and we're going to die there. Now, if you stay in your comfort zone, you're going to die. It behooves you to move. Problem, we don't want to move. Most people don't want to move. The CEOs at Ford, several of them left. Think about that. A CEO in Ford Company would not say, hi, I'm a great leader. They would leave their job before those words would come out of their mouth, because we get so entrenched in our comfort zone that we will not change. Okay, so the lepers said, hey, if we stay here, we are going to die. And if we go back into the city, into our comfort zone, we're going to die. So here's what we're going to do. Now, therefore, come. Now, therefore, let's move. That word come is yalak. It means walk or move. So now, therefore, move. Therefore, let's go. Let's get out of here. And let us fall. Their idea was this. If we go to the enemy and they kill us, we're going to die anyway. But at least we have a chance. Some of us, we know people who are in a place where they feel like they're going to die, and yet they won't move. They feel like they're messed up, screwed up, beat up, and yet they won't move. Why won't they move? Because we as humans are programmed to stay in our comfort zone. We don't like change. Proven by the Ford CEOs. They would not say, that's all they had to do, is say, hi, I'm Tom Treadway, I'm a great leader, or whatever their name was. And they would not say it. So they left Ford. They lost a 6-figure job over saying a sentence every morning. Well, all they were trying to do was get them to think differently. Because if they could get them to think differently, they could get them to move differently. If they could get them to move differently, they could get them to believe differently. If they get them to believe differently, they could get them to live differently. And Ford would return to a powerhouse that it used to be. But they would not say that. Okay, the lepers are saying, come on, let's we got to do something here. We got to do something. So if we fall to the host of the Syrians, which are right outside the camp here, if they save us alive, we'll live. And if they kill us, we're going to die anyway. Verse 5, and they rose up in the twilight to go. So see, there was movement there. They created movement in their life. They rose up in the twilight to go to the camp of the Syrians. And when they came to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was nobody there. Because the Bible says that the Syrians heard sound like chariots and sound like horsemen and sounds like a great army that was coming. They said, man, somebody must have hired somebody to come and take us out. Let's get out of here. And they left everything and left and ran for their lives. Now, these guys walked in and their lives were changed because of one reason. They moved. They got up and they began to move. They began to do things that weren't comfortable. Listen, they might die in that camp, but they're going to die if they don't go. Did you ever feel like that? I don't know if I can do that because, man, if I do that, I don't know what's going to happen. But you know that this isn't a good spot either. This is not a good spot. And if I don't go, I'm going to die. So at least there'll be a chance if I go. They rose up in the twilight and to go to the camp of the Syrians. And when they came, the othermost part of the camp. Now think about this. Just a thought. Notice how they went to the uttermost, the outside of the camp. They didn't dive right into the middle of the camp. People who are going to tell you that this is not a good program to follow, it's because how many people that you know of who are all or nothing? My wife will tell you that I'm all or nothing. They're all or nothing, and they will dive right into the middle of the camp. These guys went to the outside of the camp to see how things were going to go and started moving inward from there. Are you with me? They didn't just dive into the middle of something. It was like, oh, all or nothing. They moved, and then they found out how the water was before they dove right in. Moving nonetheless. Verse 6, for the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots, a noise of horses, even a noise of a great host. And they said one to another, lo, the king of Israel has hired against us people who are going to take us out. And so they rose and they left. And when the lepers, verse 8, came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent and did eat and drink. The very thing that they were lacking in one spot, they gained in another spot. But the problem is, in our world, we can't see the other spot from where we are. They couldn't see the camp from where they were. They just knew they couldn't stay where they were. So we can't see what God has taken us to. We can't see where we're going. We can't see what God has in store for us. So we tend as people, as the church, as Christians, as the kingdom of God, as the bride of Christ, we tend to not move because it's more comfortable to not move than it is to move into something we don't know what we're getting ourselves into.